Thank you, Scott, for the introduction. Namaste, everyone. Hari Om. Thank you for joining. I wanted to make this session partly a meditation session, but it's also a session where we learn the steps. And it's almost taking a glimpse at the meditation process overall. It's hard to fit the full experience of meditation in 30 minutes. Usually you take parts of it, work on it, and move on, at least from the perception of someone who follows Sanātana Dharma. So for those of you who read the description for what this session is about, I mentioned Dharmic faiths. Dharmic is a reference to Dharma, and Dharmic faiths include Hinduism, Jainism, Buddhism, and Sikhism. And they all have their spiritual practices rooted in what is called dhyāna. Dhyāna is the Sanskrit word for meditation or contemplation. And as was written in the description, the word dhyāna in Sanskrit became jhāna in Pāli, which was the language spoken by Buddha in the area that he grew up in. And as Buddhism took off from rooted in Hinduism, but then took off eastward towards Asia, it became chán in Chinese. Of course, there's multiple Chinese languages, but that's what it was called, and eventually became Zen in Japanese. So when you hear about Zen, that root word is the same as dhyāna, and all of them basically equate to meditation in some form or the other. So there's this, if you look at a map, there's this, draw a line basically from present day India to present day Japan. There's this flow of thought. There's this flow and pathway that literally occurred over time where this practice of meditation occurred. And obviously it's not confined to those regions, but that's where this specific type of meditation practice carried its way. Like I said, Dharmic is a reference to Dharma. Dharma means a lot of things. And you'll hear, if you ask 5 people, they'll come up with 10 different versions of what Dharma means. In its truest form, Dharma, it means the essence of our true nature. And so Sanātana Dharma, which is what we refer to as the name of our religion instead of Hinduism, means eternal Dharma. So the goal of our religion is to realize our true nature, and the self-enlightenment is referred to as moksha, and by default is the ultimate goal in life. And by application is also the goal of meditation. Like I said, meditation comes in many forms, but what we're going to do here is approach it logically. You've probably heard many names for meditation. Transcendental meditation is one of them that is common in the West. But we're going to go down to the basics here and really speak in plain English about what we're doing. Doesn't matter what faith you practice or if you don't even practice a faith. There are just some universal facts that exist. We perceive this world through our body. Our sense organs see, hear, touch, taste, and breathe the external world. So the first thing that we need to do in meditation is quieten the mind. Our mind takes our perception of sense objects and thinks thoughts and feels emotions. Next, we quieten the mind. Why? Because there exists a consciousness beyond our thoughts, beyond our mind, that we believe in Sanātana Dharma is our true nature. Our existence is based on this nature. Everything emanates from it and dissolves back into it. And to get to that point, we need to quieten the mind. But once we quieten the mind, we need to transcend the mind, go beyond the mind to what we call pure consciousness, our true nature. There isn't really a human way to describe what this is or how it is experienced. In fact, there is plenty of material on what it is not and how to get there. But in Sanātana Dharma, we refer to it as Sat Chit Ananda. That's one way of explaining it, which means existence, consciousness, bliss. We believe that we naturally yearn to be one with this existence, consciousness, and bliss. That's what we're aiming for in life, ultimately, spiritually. So meditation, from this perspective, is the art of quieting the mind and then transcending the mind. So before we begin with this process of meditation, before we even quieten the mind, the very first step is prayer. So I'll say a quick prayer and then I'll explain what it means. Om Shri Ganeshaya Namaha. Om Shri Saraswati Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. In Sanātana Dharma, we have a lot of symbols. You've probably heard of Ganesha. Ganesha is the symbol for a remover of obstacles. Saraswati is a symbol for knowledge. And your guru in this version is your spiritual guru, your spiritual guide. And so we pray to have this meditation session without any obstacles so that we learn, and we do it with gratitude and seeking the blessings from our spiritual guide. Second, and this is where we all get a little more active, the second step is posture, what is referred to as asanam. So the two most important aspects of this, and there's many aspects to seating posture, but as you know, the two most important are to sit firmly but comfortably. That's sthiram and sukham in Sanskrit. And how are you folding your legs if you're seated down on the floor, or if you're on a chair? Put your legs down in a comfortable position. But the most important thing is that your back, your neck, and your head are all lined up as one. That's the most important position. Don't be stiff, but be firm yet comfortable. So remember that. You can place your hands together like this onto your lap. You can put them down onto your thighs. Whatever keeps your shoulder at a comfortable position. And just for the purpose of this session, please be aware that I'm going to be talking. I'll probably keep my eyes open. What I'm going to ask you to do right now is for all of you, now that you're in the proper posture, to slowly close your eyes. Take a couple deep breaths in and out. Breathe in, breathe out. And the third step is now body awareness. Keep your eyes closed. Keep your posture firm yet comfortable. And make yourself aware of your body. This is now you withdrawing from the external world to the extent that you possibly can, and being aware of your seated body position. Without looking, with your eyes closed, think of your feet as they are right now. Be aware of your feet. Be aware of your knees. Be aware of your thighs, your stomach, your chest, your arms, your shoulder, your neck, your head, and the top of your head. Be aware of your body as it is right now. Make sure your posture is still, firm, yet comfortable. Make sure your breathing is regulated. Don't worry about your thoughts right now. Just be aware of your body. Now gradually go into the fourth step. The fourth step being the observation of your breath. This is all mental, so your eyes should remain closed. Be aware of your breath, breathing in, breathing out. Try to keep it steady. In, out. Breathe in, breathe out. And as you're actively breathing, you may have other thoughts come through. Bring yourself back to your breath. It's the simple act that we are constantly doing all the time. Just be aware of it. Breath observation is one of the most essential and important ways to calm the body down. And it also quietens the mind. It's a transition that combines calmness of body and calmness of mind. That's why much importance is placed on it. Breathe in, breathe out. Take a moment to keep doing that, being aware of your breath. Step 5 is what we refer to as japa. Japa is a repeated mental thought, or what we call a mantra. It's very similar to doing rosary in Christianity. You give one object to the mind so that the mind can focus. You take that one thought and you repeat it. You can make that thought whatever you want it to be. For the sake of this session, I will keep it very simple and repeat the Sanskrit word shanti. Shanti means peace. Shanti. 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 Repeat it mentally in your own mind. I won't repeat it vocally. Whatever your thought is, whatever your mantra is, repeat it. Be aware of that mantra. Take a moment to repeat mentally in your mind. As you do this, you may notice your hand moving away from your lap. You may notice your eyes fidgeting. You may start thinking about something that happened earlier today. Move your body back into the proper posture. with regulated breathing and come back to that repeated thought. Be aware of that repeated thought, whatever it is. Come back to it. Your distraction will dissipate once you're aware of your repeated thought. Don't worry about it. Don't try to push it away. Just come back to this step. Repeat mentally. Now keep your eyes closed and I'll explain a little bit about what thought is. Thought is awareness of an object. Your mind is a flow of thoughts. Thought is an awareness of an object. Your mind is a flow of thoughts. If you remove an object or the subject matter from the thought, there will only be awareness. If you remove an object from the thought, there will only be awareness. That awareness is what we call our true nature. And this is what we call transcending the mind. Come back to that repeated thought. Keep repeating. Each time you are repeating it, you're repeating a thought. And now let's move into the sixth step, which is adding a gap in between each repetition. So I used the thought or the mantra Shanti, and I repeated it over and over again. This time, I will repeat it, but with a gap in between. If you're using a different thought, different mantra, different repetitive thought, do so mentally, yet keep a gap in between. But you must remain still between each mention of the thought. Be aware of that stillness. Shanti. 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 In between each repetition, be aware of that silence, that stillness. Don't think about it. Be aware. It's a subtle difference. Shanti. 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 Take a moment. Repeat your thought, your mantra, with a gap in between. And when there is that gap, that silence, be aware of that silence. Don't think about it. Don't think about other thoughts. Some may come, some may go. Let them be. But be aware of the silence as there is silence. That repetition of that single thought, that single mantra, is your way of getting your mind to stay focused. You're not truly transcending the mind, but you are approaching it. You're practicing that concept by being single-minded instead of flustered with many thoughts, many emotions. So each mention is focus. And in between each focus, be aware. Focus, and then be aware of that silence. Take a few minutes and repeat, focus, and then be aware of the silence. Sounds will come and go. Thoughts will come and go. Don't push them away. There's nothing you can do about it. Just be aware of them and let them go and come back to your repeated thought so you can focus and then be aware of the silence. Now, as we approach the seventh step, the seventh being to experience the stillness of silence, be aware that this is not something that happens easily. It takes a lot of practice. But let's try anyway. Whatever the mind encounters, if one is able to maintain awareness, that's all that matters. A thought will come, a sound will come. Suppressing it will only make it worse. Engaging it will carry you away. But being aware of the sound, being aware of the thought, will suddenly make it go away on its own. So don't be carried away by a thought if it comes. At the end of the day, the point is detachment from thoughts. And the proper attitude is of the self being a detached witness. That's what we are trying to do here. Detach from the mind. Detach from the body. Just experience that stillness, that silence. Just be. We refer to this as Sakshi Bhav. Come back to that silence and be aware of it. So without repeating your chant, your mantra, your thought, try to sit and be aware of the silence that exists. There will be sounds. Your body may bother you. There may be thoughts that come up. Just be aware of it all. But ideally, those will go away and not come back in great frequency. And you can just be aware of the silence in between. Take a few minutes, practice this awareness. It's not thinking, it's just being aware. Sometimes we feel ourselves slipping away, almost like we're falling asleep. Bring your body, your mind, your awareness back. Proper posture with stillness, being firm yet comfortable. Regulated breathing in and out. Come back to that repeated chant or thought if you need to, so you can focus. And once you're focused, let the silence that comes in between remain and just be aware. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Keep your eyes closed. Come back to your breath. Feel your fingers, your feet, your arms, yet still with your eyes closed. Whoever your spiritual guide is that you prayed to or that you thought of, or maybe you may not have one, but whatever that may be for you, the feeling, the expression that I want you to process is that of gratitude. Once you've expressed that gratitude mentally, slowly open your eyes. You can have your eyes open, but stay still. And before we move on to your questions, I wanted to make sure that a few things were understood about what we're doing here. We went from preparation of your body to the preparation of the mind. But even doing all this, while important, it's also important to study. Now, we all come from different faiths. We're all gathered here. What we all believe is the goal in life, what that higher power may or may not be, if it exists or doesn't exist. It's all different. So the ultimate goal may be different for each one of us. But that silence that you experience, that you're aware of, or try to be aware of, it happens. Whether you can truly transcend the mind, that's for you to realize yourself. But one thing we can all agree on is that this practice, at least from a physical and mental level, and to some extent going beyond the mental, provides some semblance of peace. It makes you feel good. And the reason we believe it makes you feel good is because in our belief, we're tapping into what we refer to as existence, consciousness, and bliss. Now, whatever it is you believe, the important thing to do is to study and understand whatever it is that you believe, what we refer to as the nature of the self, or generally speaking, what people refer to as God. Sleep is important. You can't do any of this without proper sleep. You might as well go lay down if you didn't get a good night's of sleep. That's more important than doing this. Otherwise, you're going to be falling asleep the whole time. Your environment is important. I don't know whether you could hear it or not. My son was crying the whole time downstairs while this is going on. And my baby daughter was crying as well. I don't know what's happening. But that's why we suggest that this type of session ideally occurs in the very, very early morning, which is right after you get a good night's rest. Yet it's in the silence of the very early morning before the hustle and bustle of the day starts. Your actions are important. Whatever you believe, we all believe in doing something for the greater good. If that greater good is God, so be it. If that greater good is just doing good things in society, so be it. But the concept is that your actions are selfless, without ego. It's a fundamental concept to what Hindus believe. What you put in your body is important. Do you eat too much? Drink too much? Do you eat the right things? We all have different beliefs about what the quote-unquote right and wrong things are. But paying more attention to that ties into this meditation process. And finally, the moderation of your desires matters. Can't get rid of all of them, but you can work towards moderating them and eventually extinguishing desires. It takes a lot of work and practice, physically and mentally. Ultimately, the quality matters more than the length of the session, but you can take each one of the parts, each one of those 7 steps, and spend a lot of time working on it. In Sanātana Dharma, we believe that the ego pushes us towards this perception, and dissolving the ego, exhausting your desires and tendencies, is the only way to experience oneness with your true nature. Whatever we do, we should not do it for ourselves, but for the greater good and for a higher purpose. And ultimately, we believe that higher purpose at the most high level is our true nature. And we're essentially just yearning to meet with that true nature. With that being said, I want to express my thanks and gratitude towards all of you for joining me in this session. It's a very quick run through of 7 steps of meditation. It's 7 steps in plain English that anyone can do, no matter what their age is. But with that, I'm going to pass it back to Scott, and we'll proceed to your questions that I hopefully can answer for you.